I've got my family coming over and they love to eat pork, so I thought I'd surprise them and cook my porchetta with herb de Provence and prune stuffing with a beautiful brandy and apple cider jus. So we'll start with the stuffing. We'll pop our stove top on and a couple of cloves of garlic. Just a rough chop, and 1 onion. A tablespoon or 2 of olive oil and the same of butter. And the reason why we put oil with the butter is because it stops the butter from burning. And in with our onion and garlic. This is our lovely piece of pork that I've got from Wayne Barker this morning, our local butcher. Okay, we might add the herbs de Provence. I always put an extra bit of oregano and the secret ingredient, some fennel. Now I want to cook it down till it caramelizes a little bit. Okay, and now for the prunes. And I just give them a little chop, so just a handful. But you could use any other fruit, dried fruit, maybe apricot or fig. Okay, I think it looks like we're ready to build our stuffing. Onion into the bowl, the breadcrumb. I've got half a cup and a handful of the prune. Parsley from the garden. I do tend to take the stalks off so you don't get the woody bits in there. And into the bowl and a little mix. Now, sometimes if you feel that the stuffing is a little bit dry, you can add a tiny little bit of water. So you've got the sweetness of the prune, the salt and the pepper, the lovely herby flavours coming through there. So there we have it, our beautiful sourdough stuffing with prune and herbs de Provence. Just lovely. Now we're going to stuff our pork. So because this is quite a bulky piece here, I've decided that I'm just going to cut down a little bit through the middle, just so that I can put the stuffing in a little further and get a little bit more mileage. We don't want to make it too bulky with the stuffing, because when we tie it up it's only just going to come on out, and remember we can always freeze the little bit that's left over. And then we're going to put a little bit more salt, good grinding of black pepper, and then just gently fold. And now I am going to ask one of you guys to come and lend me your finger. So we want to tie at about a couple of inches in intervals. Wonderful. And I'm going to just clip these. Now we're going to take a nice heavy based baking dish and drizzle just a tiny little bit of olive oil, because the pork is going to release a fair bit of fat, so we don't want to overdo it. And we're going to dry the pork off with a piece of absorbent paper. Actually, you could do this whole bit the day before and put the pork in the fridge without covering it, so that the skin really dries out nicely overnight in the fridge, and that really will help as well enhance your crackle action. Tiny little bit of oil, not too much, just to give it a little smear, and so your salt sticks. Season and then season again. That's my motto. So now to get the pork ready for roasting, what I like to do is add a couple of onions as a base or a bed for the pork to actually sit up on. And what that does is the onion really informs the gravy in the end, and it just lets the pork sit up there and not get too burnt on the bottom of the pan. and I don't even worry to peel the onion. On with the pork, into the oven for an hour, but halfway through I'm going to pull it out and add the apples. All we need to do now is make the jus and leave as much of those lovely crispy caramelized bits in the bottom of your baking dish, because that's what's going to be the foundation of our lovely apple and brandy jus. Okay, and onto the fire. So a couple of tablespoons of plain flour, and you're just going to take a nice, quite a large spoon. We're going to mix the flour, the aroma of the thyme, and it's really important here that we cook the flour out, because once we add our stock and all that jazz, you don't want to get that floury taste. You really want to make sure that you cook it out. Okay, then what I do is I swap out for a whisk. Start with the cider, and then a couple of cups of chicken stock, and just a little slash, not too much, of brandy. I like to have more of a runny consistency, and then maybe just a little bit more fresh thyme for perkiness and freshness. Now we have a little taste for seasoning, pouring into the jug, and there we have it, my porchetta with herbs de Provence, prune, with my brandy and apple jus, food from the heart.